Here's a quick reference to the code before we get started. Using Unity engine.inputSystem, and that gives us the variable type input action reference. This gives us a drop-down menu that lets us select the button that we set up in the input system. Variable.action.readValue of type float gives us either a 0 or 1 depending on whether or not we're pressing the button. Alright, so this tutorial is going to be really fast and designed just for people who are already familiar with Unity. If this is your first time using Unity, I highly recommend watching my full video where I go over everything in a lot more detail. Also, I'd really love it if you go check out my VR game, Jet Island, which is available on Steam right now. It has over 1,500 overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, and it is a ton of fun. I'm really proud of it. Alright, now let's move on to the tutorial. We're going to learn how to set up VR with any SteamVR headset in Unity. We're going to get positional tracking, and we're going to learn how to get input from the buttons. In the past, we used to use the SteamVR plugin or the Oculus plugin, but now we're going to be using OpenXR in the input system. So step 1, we need to download 4 things from the package manager. We're going to download the input system, OpenXR, XR Interaction Toolkit, and then the starter assets from the Samples tab under the XR Interaction Toolkit. Once those are imported and you've restarted Unity, go to the project settings, then XR Plugin Management, and check the box that says OpenXR. Then click on the OpenXR tab and then click the plus button underneath of Enabled Interaction Profiles and select all of the controller types that you want to support for your game. Then click on Project Validation and click on Fix All. Next, go to your scene. In the hierarchy, delete the main camera and then right-click, go to XR, and then select XR Origin. Open up the children on that game object and select the left controller. In the inspector, under the component XR Controller Action Based, click on that little button in the top right-hand corner that looks like 2 little left and right sliders. Select XRI Default Left Controller from the list, and then repeat the same process for the right controller. Now in the background, open up Steam and launch SteamVR and run the game in Unity. Now positional tracking should be working. You should be able to put on the headset and see into VR. If the controllers aren't moving yet, you need to put your finger over top of the proximity sensor in between the 2 eyes, or you can just wear the headset. Alright, now let's get input from the buttons on the controller. Go to the project window and under Assets, right-click, Create, and create an Input Actions, and name that whatever you want. In the inspector, select Generate C# class and hit Apply. Then double-click your input actions to open it and edit it. Create a new actions map and name it Right Hand. Then rename the first action or create a new action and call it whatever the action you want it to be in the game. In my case, I'm going to call it Shoot. Then click on the little drop-down arrow and select Binding. Then under Path, navigate to XR Controller and select the type of controller that you're using. Then select Right Hand, Usages, and then the button you want it to be. In my case, I'm using Trigger Button. It's very important, remember to click Save Asset. Now go back to your scene and select XR Origin in the hierarchy. Under the component Input Action Manager, open up Action Assets and click on the plus button. Now drag and drop the input actions that you just created into element 1. Now we need to create a C# script for getting input from the controllers. So go to the project window, go to the assets folder, and right-click Create C# script, and name it whatever you want. In my case, I'm calling it VR Player Script. First, we need to write using Unity engine.inputSystem semicolon. That's going to give us access to the input action reference class. So we're going to write public input action reference and then name it anything that we want. I'm going to call it Shoot. This is going to give us a drop-down window in the inspector that's going to let us select what button we want Shoot to be. And we're going to select the Shoot button that we created in the input actions. Then inside of void update, we're going to write shoot.action.readValue of type float, and then opening and closing parenthesis. This is going to give us either a 0 or a 1, depending on whether or not we are pressing the trigger. And then we're just going to put all of that inside of a debug.log so that we can see it in the console window. Now we need to add the script that we just created as a component onto any game object in our scene. I'm going to add mine to the XR origin. Then just select the shoot button, and then everything should be ready to go. Make sure you have SteamVR running and run the game. Make sure you also are putting your finger over the proximity sensor in between the eyes on the headset. Now, when you pull the trigger in the console window, it should switch between a 0 or 1 depending on whether or not you are holding down the trigger. Instead of debug.log, you would just use an if statement to see if it's either a 0 or a 1 to see whether or not you're pressing the button, and repeat this process for all of the different buttons that you're going to need in your game, and that is how you're going to build your VR game. Alright, that was the tutorial. I hope that that was helpful. In the future, I might set up a Patreon. If I do decide to do that, the link will be in the description below to that. And also, if you're interested, please check out the new game that I'm working on with giant monsters. It's using photogrammetry graphics, and it is going to be really, really cool. So you can follow the development of that on my main channel. I guess until my next episode, I will see you later and keep making games.